So to talk about the course sequencing and the advisement, everybody's case is unique. What I'm going to talk about here is a very standard protocol where a student has not taken any supply chain class coming into their junior year. And so what you see here is in essence a time frame from your junior year fall, which is fall of 22, let's say, complete your summer of that junior year and then move into your senior year in fall and then graduate in spring. So this is the most prevalent one. We have multiple students who also graduate in December. There are certain students who actually graduate at the end of summer, but mostly the bulk of our students tend to graduate in spring. And so what I'm providing here may not directly fit into your exact schedule, but you'll get the feel of it. So we start off with, in essence, the core classes, right? So we have OSCM 300 that is traditionally offered only in fall. OSCM 310 is also offered only in fall. 320 is traditionally offered only in spring. Some of you may have had 320 in fall, last fall, because Dr. DiPaolo was on sabbatical this spring. The internship is traditionally offered in summer. Under very, very abnormal circumstances, I sometimes let an internship pass in a graduating semester, but those are very critical situations. Normally, it's a summer internship. We also have a fall opportunity for students to pursue the Greenbelt class, the 445L. And then in spring of your graduating semester or your graduating year, which means whether you're graduating in spring, in summer, or the fall of that year, you take OSCM 490, which is your capstone class, and this is only offered in springs. Now, what you see here at 6 classes, if you look into the typical catalog of the supply chain program, we have only 5 required classes. And really, if you ask me, we would have had 6 required classes. If you look into most other curricula, they have 9 courses. And we are probably the only one that has 8 classes to complete the program, 5 required classes and 3 specialization classes. And the only reason we designed that was when we were designing this curriculum, we weren't sure if all our students would be able to get into internships. It was a nascent curriculum at that time, a baby in the eyes of the industry. They didn't know us, we didn't know them. And so we had to create some kind of a backup in the event a student cannot do an internship. What does the student do? And that's where the Lean 6 class came over. Given the nature of its project, working with the industry, it has a good experiential learning component to it. And therefore we said that a student can choose between these two. If you have been advised by me or will get advised by me in the future, I'll tell you this: both these classes are equally important to you, and I would suggest that you take both these classes before you graduate from this curriculum. The internship is the single most important class that will ensure that you get through smoothly into the industry. People in the industry really look for that internship in your resume. I can tell you multiple examples of students who were stellar students in terms of their capabilities, in terms of their GPAs and everything else. But because they missed out on their internship, and that can happen due to a multitude of factors, the most prevalent factor is when that student is starting their degree in supply chain very late. Maybe they decide to pursue supply chain in their 4th year. And so in a scramble for courses, they choose the 445 route and they go without the internship. And I have seen them suffer, especially compared to students who are probably a half of their potential, and they still have jobs because they have that internship. And therefore, take that very seriously. It is one of the most important attributes to success. And on the other end, the 445L, which is the Greenbelt class, this is unique for our curriculum because there are not too many undergraduate curriculums in business that offer a Greenbelt certification across the country. It is widely used in master's and MBA. It is widely used in the engineering curricula, but not essentially on the business side. So this is really something that sets our students apart and something that allows students to compete not only with business peers, but also with engineering peers. And that's a very different domain altogether. Um, there is a big reason why I have put those two classes in red. Um, the red signifies its criticality. And so they're both, in my view, critical classes. And when I talk about the next piece of the puzzle, which is your specializations, this is where those classes can really fit in or gel with a lot of the specializations that we offer. So let's talk specializations here. So when we talk about specializations or tracks, the first one that I'll talk about is the one in which we have been most successful. Over the last 10 years that I have been teaching and building this curriculum, more than 90% of our students eventually end up with a career in sourcing or procurement. Okay, and therefore that becomes the de facto specialization within the program. And so unfortunately, I was unable to offer an OSCM 455 global sourcing class this spring, and I apologize. I'll make it up for you, I promise. And there is a reason why I'm stepping down from my MBA role at the end of summer and coming back to supply chain full time. These are courses that we really need to offer to continue to be competitive in the industry and in the region. So when we talk about sourcing, OSCM 455, which is offered only in spring, is your global sourcing class. That's basically the sourcing capstone. It's a required class in the curriculum if you are pursuing the sourcing track. And the good news is, with so many years of working with the industry partners, with many of our students who are currently placed in those industries, they are extremely well aware of what is taught in that class. That class has a very different vibe into it. And so it makes you extremely competitive to go into the industry. And so it is specifically designed to be offered in spring before your summer internship, because it allows for a natural pathway into your internship. The OSCM 475 class, it's also taught in spring. This is also a very special class, which is why you see me putting this in red, because as many of you have known, have taken that class, Dr. Shikora, who teaches in this program, who is the current chair of the department, is also an SAP certified professional. And therefore, it is a unique opportunity, a unique privilege for us to use his competency in this class. So this course is taught as an ERP class, giving you a broad overview of the ERP platform, but it is taught using SAP as an example. And that instantiation allows a lot of learning curve to be leveled as you move into companies. Many of our business partners are Fortune 500 companies that run on SAP. And to have that backdrop is golden when you go to the industry, when you go to interviewing. And given the nature of how global businesses connect together, that ERP class can fit into a lot of other specializations as well. So that is another important class that gets into sourcing. He doesn't cover the materials management module as much, because he also looks into the other modules, but the MM module, which is specific to the sourcing professional, is the sourcing professional's bread and butter, especially if you're working in an SAP environment. And therefore, the 475 class very nicely gels with the sourcing track. And then what I also recommend is the Marketing 445, the business negotiations class, which is taught by Dr. Fleming normally, but sometimes Dr. Ferguson also takes up that class. And the good news is that class is offered both in fall and spring. So right now here I have put this on fall, but as you design your curriculum, you can place it in fall or in spring. So you have a lot of flexibility in that regard. And that's a great class also from a negotiations perspective to bring into sourcing and contracts and so on and so forth. So that is, from my perspective, a third class, which really binds that track or that specialization together. Next is analytics. Of course, the supply chain faculty here is quite rich in analytics, which is why we offer most of our analytics classes that you see with an OSCM prefix, because these are all our classes. So really the analytics classes are a little bit at the higher end. So they're all 400 level classes. And so if you're starting as a junior, you should ideally take those classes in senior. The 425 forecasting class is offered only in fall. The 435 business analytics class, which is kind of the analytics capstone class, is offered in spring. It's ideal to take that class in your graduating semester. And then the third course that I normally advise students to bring up as part of analytics is Marketing 338, which is the marketing research class. And that has a good application of analytics from outside of what we offer in the supply chain curriculum. And that course, again, has a lot of flexibility. It's offered in fall, in spring, sometimes even in summer. But normally, let's concentrate on a fall and spring. And so because of its 300 level option in marketing, if somebody is starting as a junior, they can actually take that class as early as this coming fall and then take up the analytics classes in the senior year. And so that is one way of looking into that track or that specialization within supply chain. The third one, and so for many of you who were in business in OSCM 300 with Professor Spivey last semester, I walked in one time to talk about the new logistics track. And so we are very excited about it. So that's your logistics track. You have two classes that we offer in partnership with Geodis. The first class, we call it OSCM 486A, and we are just using that as a special topics class right now because of tremendous red tapes inside of the college that allows us to not design a class completely from scratch and run it through all 9 yards. And therefore, we are just using them as special topics classes, but eventually these will all be hard coded into classes. So the 486A is offered in spring. This is a basic overview logistics class. And then the expectation is that you go through that class, you get into an internship, apply yourself, and you come back in fall. And this is a really cool class because this is where we differentiate ourselves from the rest of the crowd in this region. There is not a course that is specifically dedicated to 3PL and warehousing in this area. And that makes us extremely proud of this offering in conjunction with Geodis. Now, when it comes to a third class in logistics, you have many options. And I'll give you a few. Your third class in logistics could be the 445 Greenbelt class. Your third class in logistics could also be the ERP class, because a lot of logistics accounts are managed using ERP depending on the service provider and the 3PL agent's powerhouse. You can also use Marketing 445 or business negotiations as a third option within logistics. So there are different directions to go with that, and I'll be more than happy to talk with each one of you individually on your specific areas of interest and what will best align the cause. Okay, so those are our bread and butter specializations. But I really want to talk about a few more which have really transpired over the last 3 or 4 years. I don't know if you're aware of this. I actually wrote a grant in 2019 to incorporate Industry 4.0 applications and cases within our curriculum. And so once we got that grant accepted, we have been gradually trying to plug and play Industry 4.0 cases or projects within our curriculum across multiple classes. We also try to keep that learning active through our curricular activities that I'll discuss later on today, where you also get a good feel of what it takes to be a graduate of a supply chain program in the Industry 4.0 era. So I offer a specialization that is dedicated to Industry 4.0. There are cross-functional classes from computer science in artificial intelligence and machine learning that I am willing to negotiate in terms of what that class would be. There are also courses in data mining, and of course the business analytics 435 class should be taken as part of this 3-class package that is specifically focused towards Industry 4.0. It's a very cool area. It makes you extremely competitive, and so on and so forth. Another area that we see a lot, and this is a departure from how the definition of consulting used to be in my time. And I don't want to make myself feel too old, but the idea here is when you look into consulting, if I need a consultation from somebody, you always need a consultation from an expert, right? So what makes me an expert? What makes me an expert is continued indulgence into a certain field of area. So in my time, I could not imagine moving into consulting unless I put in 3, 4, 5 years of work within a specific domain of supply chain, building expertise in that domain, and then using that expertise to consult. But that concept has changed quite a bit over the last few years. And so we see a lot of entry-level opportunities in consulting that are trickling through. And Vista as a company is only one example of what supply chain consulting is. But very broadly, if you really look into coursework or course content that allows you to pursue a consulting track within supply chain, you would want to have some basic knowledge on ERP. And the ERP SAP class is a fantastic course that will add to that artillery. Definitely the Greenbelt class. Think about earning a green belt as having a philosophy more than anything else. It's a philosophy of thought. When a problem is offered to you that requires a solution, that requires an improvement, how do you go about it? So the Six Sigma body of knowledge basically enforces that pathway for you in your thought process, be it CPOC, be it the DMAIC, whatever thought process you want to apply in there. It's very critical from a consulting standpoint. Also, market research or marketing research is a great tool to have for anybody who is trying to pursue a consulting career. And therefore, those are the 3 ones that I would suggest if somebody is really pursuing a consulting career and wants to dive head on into that in the near future. Last but not the least, I call it the Panera Bread one. So pick 3 instead of pick 2. So this is where I really want to go into one-on-one conversations with you. The good news is you'll find a lot of these classes very interesting. And oftentimes people have this tendency that I want to take them all. Oh my God, can I take one from here, one from the other, and build my own? And I offer that opportunity as long as it allows you to build a logical story. Okay, the story is everything. Okay, if you can make a storyline of who you are and what your contribution would be, okay, what value do you bring to the company or to the economy or to the society? That is what people are looking for in you. And so as long as that storyline is there, everything works. Last but not the least, I want to talk a little bit about minors. Before I talk about minors, and again, every advisor will talk to you differently. And I want to not ask you this question, but really ask you to think about this question. Okay, why do you need a minor? When does somebody need a minor? When you have a major where we are talking about a major where demand in the marketplace way exceeds supply. If you do your game plan correctly, if you put in the right effort, you're going to graduate with multiple job offers in your hand. And that's the reality. Okay, so everything that we have discussed so far more than takes care of your need in the economy. Okay, and therefore the question then becomes, why do I need a minor? Oftentimes a minor goes over and above the major, tries and makes up for the cracks in a major. And there are certain majors which are good majors in terms of your learning, but don't really have jobs connected to those majors. And so in those circumstances, a minor is always a good choice that really strengthens your case. I don't think that is the case for the supply chain program. The next is oftentimes students are really fascinated by being able to showcase that I graduated with a major in operations supply chain management and a minor in XYZ. My question to you then is, where does it go? Because it doesn't show up in my graduation certificate for those of you who will be graduating and walking in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks time. All you will get is a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. And that's all it says. It doesn't even show operational supply chain management. The minor in some form can show up in a transcript, but again, who is viewing that transcript? If a company is viewing that transcript, there is a single number that they're looking at, your CGPA. And that's essentially trying to ensure that you're not telling a lie when you are going for the job. If the job has an expectation for 3.0 GPA, as long as you have 3.0 GPA and your transcript showcases that, you're good. So you always ask yourself the question, why? Okay. And especially if you have an opportunity to graduate early and give back to the economy, give back to the society, to work in corporate, there is nothing else that is a better option. I mean, as an educator, as an academic, I have a selfish reason to tell you, please stay back and take more classes, because whatever you pay for the classes pays for my salary. So I have a selfish reason to say that to you, but really, there is absolutely no reason if you can graduate early and enter the workforce, because that's what we prepare you for. And especially I see a lot of options flying around here. People take minors for multiple reasons. People take minors when you have 120 credits that you have to accomplish before you graduate. And sometimes with whatever coursework you have had, including your core and your supply chain specialization, you are not hitting that number. That's when a minor is a good choice, because you have no option. You have to take those credits. Sometimes students also stay back thinking that, okay, I have a scholarship and avenue of funds. Why don't I just stay back and take the minor, as long as I have major courses to take alongside? But if you're only staying back for the sake of the minor, I ask you that you rethink your strategy, because no course can teach you more than what the world outside can teach you. And as you can see, I have a different way of representing these minors. The analytics minor, as an example, was not really created for our supply chain students. It was created for non-supply chain students who don't have a background in analytics. I mean, if you have taken a course with me, be it OSCM 300, be it OSCM 455 or 490, you have enough analytics that go even in those classes. Okay. Take into consideration 310, 320, 425, 435, 445, 475, which is in essence an analytics class. You have enough under your belt to really bring that story into your resume. If in all reality, you need extra classes to make up for those 120 credits and you need minors, my suggestion is to look into economics, to look into packaging, to look into sustainability, to look into entrepreneurship, to look into sales, because those, along with your supply chain, can actually provide you a better bang for the buck. In fact, depending on the specialization or track that you are choosing, you can specifically choose a certain area for your minor. So example, if you're using a logistics track, a great minor for it, if you really need a minor, would be packaging. You could also connect that into sustainability. Sustainability connects very nicely with sourcing as well. Industry 4.0, again, analytics is redundant there. If you're choosing that area, maybe you can choose economics from a perspective of how evolutionary Industry 4.0 is in the next generation of supply chain. So those are the lines of thoughts that you would want to have, and I'm more than happy to have those discussions with each one of you on a one-on-one basis. And so hopefully you start digesting some of the stuff that we have discussed here, and look at your own schedule, look at your own curriculum. And this is a good time when you can now reach out to me and say, Dr. B, I have read through this, I have thought through this. Can we have a meeting? And then we can discuss more specific to what you need and how I can help you. Okay. So the next piece of the puzzle is internships. And again, this is broadly supported by our Career Center. The internship as a class has really benefited many of our students over the last 10 years, because this internship as a course allows me to intervene in the process, which creates for a three-way relationship of sorts, right? It's you there, it's me as your internship supervisor, and you also have your academic supervisor. Sorry, I'm your academic supervisor, and you have your internship supervisor. So it allows us to strengthen the bonds with the businesses with which we already have a partnership. And therefore, it's a win-win strategy for all parties involved. Also, many of our students, depending on the kind of internship they do, they come back in fall and pursue a Greenbelt course where you need a project. And so depending on the kind of internship and the specific industry that you're working with, in many situations, our students have been able to go back to that same company and continue and complete their Greenbelt project. Oftentimes, it's hard to start or build that project. Oftentimes, the company wouldn't allow you to pursue the Greenbelt project unless they know you enough. And the internship allows them to know you. And what I normally do is, as the academic advisor, towards the final third of your internship, I start that dialogue with your supervisor as to what that project ought to be, so that before your classes begin in fall, you already have a project plan in mind to discuss with your 445 instructor. And so that is something that I have done in the past, and we have seen a lot of success in that pipeline. So in essence, there are 4 steps to the internship, and many of you have completed these steps, some of you have not. So the first step is, of course, to request an experience. You will need to visit the Career Center on the ISU website to request the experience. The experience here is itself the internship. That is the internship. So what we call the experience is your internship. So there are some detailed instructions to request the experience in Handshake, and I shall share this slideshow with you, the slide deck with you after this presentation, maybe today in the evening, because I need to rush after this meeting. So the first step is, of course, requesting the experience. So the Career Center basically reviews your request, makes sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and ensures that everything is in order. And at that point of time, once they complete, they forward your completed request then to 2 people. One would be your academic advisor, which is myself, and the other will be your site supervisor, which would be your internship contact for approval. So automated emails will be sent from Handshake to both these contact people, the way you have generated them in your experience request. So in step 3, the approvals happen. Now I get these emails directly in my inbox, so no problem on my end. But in the corporate world, sometimes, depending on how the email is generated, it ends up in the junk mail. So very important that you follow up with your point of contact in the industry, especially in your industry, to ensure that he or she is checking those emails or looking out for that email. And so also, most of you, depending on where you're interning, if you're interning with one of our business partners, people have interned at that company before you, you are already in the ISU system. And so a host site agreement is already in place. So that process is more smoother. But if you're working with a company, which is great, which is not part of our host site agreement, it's a new company, then that has to be set up first. And so you will also, your internship supervisor or the HR contact will also get more emails in that regard. And if that is the case with you, please let me know so that I can directly work with your supervisor to explain the situation and ensure that they understand what's going on here. So in essence, once I approve of your internship and once your internship supervisor approves of that internship, your internship is approved. You'll receive an approval email and you will forward that email to Michelle Schwick, who is the current person in charge of marketing and operations. Rita Hendricks used to be my secretary in the past, but now Michelle manages that. But please copy me on that email that you sent to Michelle. So what Michelle does is she will create an override for you. Once you receive your override, you will then register for OSCM 439. This process is exactly similar to OSCM 486B. Okay, so I will want to deal with OSCM 486B. This is going to be your logistics class. This will be a Thursday class in fall. This will be exactly similar to how we dealt with 486A. Okay, so if you are interested in taking this class, which you have, if you have taken 486A, it should be a natural continuation. Please send me an email. I want to start creating that list of students who will be in this class. I'll also open it up for the MBA students to take this as a 586 class, and then we would batch load that class in the same exact way we did it for 486A. And so 439 is very similar, but you cannot enroll in that class unless you have heard back from Michelle when she creates the override for you. And that is done only when all of these steps are completed. So hopefully once you get my slide deck in hand and you review the link here, things will make more sense to you. Many of you have already completed most of these steps. For those who have not, it's not too hard. I'll work with you. If you're taking this internship as credit, I'll work with you on this one. Okay. A draft schedule of events for 22-23. I want to do this time because oftentimes I see a lot of excuses from students. I am busy, I am having something else is going on, and so on and so forth. Let me give you a broad picture first, okay? And this is what I tell our students all the time, that when you look into a 4-year program at a university, you should break it down into a 2+2 format in essence. Okay, in the first 2 years, this is when you absorb everything that the university has to offer from an experience perspective. So this is where you, if need be, party hard, but also study hard. You learn the tricks of the trade. You join sororities, you join fraternities, you get into networking with different kinds of people from cross campus, from all different backgrounds, enrich yourself, take an opportunity to study abroad, and do all 9 yards. Okay. When you move into those final 2 years, your focus is only on your career, nothing else. At that point of time, you have shifted your focus that now this is supply chain. This is an area in which I really want to thrive. I want to be the best because there's too much competition out there. What do I need to do to thrive here? And so everything that I'm going to discuss between this slide and the next ones are about the next couple of years. How do you focus yourself, channel your thoughts, channel your energy into what is really going to serve you for the rest of your lives? Okay, so just a draft schedule of events. Make sure this is on your calendar so that you can plan around these dates, not on these dates, around these dates. Leave these times for you because this is you time, right? This time is for you. This is for you to get the best of what we offer. Okay. So the first big important date is September 13th. Okay, so this is the big day of OSCM. We'll have a couple of panels. We'll also have a big supply chain career fair. I'm expecting at least 20 companies coming in the evening. A lot of our fellow alumni will also return. It's a mega event, and so make sure that you save the date. Keep yourself off. If there is a class that you are taking at that time in the evening, I can work with your professor to ensure that you get time off. But this is of absolute importance to you. This is the most important event to start off. And so for those of you who will be in my OSCM 300 class in fall, I'll get you ready to be at your very best at this date, so that we have about a month, and a month is enough time for me to get you ready. ASCM case competition, I say stay tuned because they are changing the way they are doing this. In the past, they have done this as a virtual competition. So the virtual competition really is a semester-long competition. And if that happens, I will incorporate this as part of OSCM 300. But I have a strong feeling that they have had a lot of negative remarks in that process, and they want to go back to the old template, which Dr. Shikura and I absolutely adored. And that will be a face-to-face competition. They give you the case at 7 p.m. Next day by 7 a.m. you have to deliver. And so all night you work on it. This is in Downers Grove, Illinois. February 17th. This is the 3rd February of the month. This is a very standard protocol that they have always had. We go in on February 17th, which we present on the 18th, and normally we stay back on the 18th and we come back on 19th. So that is how we plan that event. But it's something I don't know where they're headed with this, because they have actually stalled the 2022 event for the time being. The Connexus Advanced Manufacturing and Logistics Case Competition. I have provided some info here, and you will see a couple of your alumni here. So this is a capstone event for us, a flagship event for us. A lot of what you learn gets aggregated into these competitions, and tremendous opportunity to network. Some of the top brasses in business are normally judges for these events, so they get to not only hear you firsthand, but also get a feel of who you are and whether you fit into their company and their culture. So typically this is held in October, so once the date is there, I shall share that with you. Career immersion trip. I normally do this trip as part of my OSCM 490 class, but I have had thoughts in my mind for a long time to open this up for students who are juniors as well, so that they get multiple opportunities. So this is during spring break. So this is a standard protocol that I have always followed. This is the Monday and Tuesday of spring break. It's an all-day, all-paid trip to multiple sites that we visit. Multiple faculty members also travel in most cases. And it is in its real sense, it is an immersion into your career. You have quite a few seniors sitting here, and some of them can tell you later on today, how much they have benefited from this opportunity. So it's something you should not miss. Another big event that we are really planning is the MHI event in Chicago. So the Material Handling Institute actually offers 2 events. One in Chicago, it's called the ProMat, and the following year they have an event called MODEX in Atlanta. This time about 9, 10, 11 of our students actually visited the MODEX Expo in Atlanta, and it's the greatest extravaganza in Industry 4.0. And so we are planning for an all-paid trip. It's a 4-day event. In fact, I have already worked with Dr. Ferrari and Dr. Shikora, and we are all going. We are planning to go to Chicago for this event. It's easy to remember the date. It's 2023, so it's from March 20 to 23. So save that date. We may not need to do some work in terms of your classes during that time, but if it is a supply chain class, you don't have to worry. For other classes, we will make arrangements. But this is a fantastic opportunity to learn firsthand how the industry moves. And we'll have so many of those teaching moments while you are there that it's something that you should not miss if given a chance. There's an IUPUI case competition. We have some case competition winners also sitting in this meeting today. It's normally in April, so we will probably have that competition again in April. So, and of course, we will have other ASCM events. So we'll have some guest speakers, we'll have resume reviews, we'll have site tours, we'll have a women in manufacturing panel, and we will intersperse these across these big events. And so that last piece of the puzzle basically gets me to my next slide, which is ASCM Chapter 22-23. Real quick. Yes, I am taking over as your chapter advisor, and so we will go back to the old way of managing this chapter. Hopefully, it'll be it'll have the rigor that I want to see from the chapter going forward. Normally, we choose our executive board in spring for the coming fall. We did not have that opportunity, and so I want to do this in a different way. My question to all of you, especially for those of you who are staying back through fall as part of your curriculum, is ask yourself the question, do you want to serve? And the serve is in italics and bolded because of that, because of a reason. The service should come from your passion for supply chain. The fun part with this chapter, and this is something I always struggle with, is since APICS at that time made it free for students, there is a $0 association with being a member of this chapter. Now, put that in the context of being a member, let's say, of Alpha Kappa Psi or Delta Sigma Pi or some other fraternity, where I think the students pay quite a bit of money. I, of all people, don't want students to pay money. If you've been in a class of mine, you rarely see a textbook that I ask you to buy. And so if I can get by around it and make it cheaper for you, I would always do that. Now, that said, understand that just because you don't have to pay to be part of this chapter doesn't degrade the importance of what ASCM brings to the table. ASCM, unlike the others I mentioned, is not a fraternity. It's not a sorority. It's a professional chapter. And when you talk about professional chapter, you are talking of direct collaboration with the industry. Everybody that you will work with in the industry, in supply chain, are members of ASCM themselves. They have been through certifications that come through ASCM. ASCM is probably the single most important connection for you to the industry. And therefore, you reap what you sow, right? And so whatever you put into ASCM is what you get out of it. And executive board membership is not only a great check off on your resume from a leadership perspective, but it is also a great way to be at the forefront of what we as a university, we as a program want to accomplish as ASCM. So if this is really your passion, what I suggest is that reach out to me discreetly regarding your interest in serving in ASCM. And this coming year, we would go by myself making that choice of who would serve in which position based off of the number of nominations I get. But I have been through the democratic process multiple years, and that has not always rendered the results that we have tried to see. At the end of the day, for any program, for any activity, passion runs it. The only person that I have reached out specifically to serve, not as an executive board member, but as a mentor, is Gabrielle, because Gabrielle is going to graduate in fall, and she has been part of the current chapter board. So there are certain elements that she would probably draw from what they did right, what they didn't do right. But I would really want to close in on the board by the end of this semester, early summer, so that I have a feel of who is going to serve on the board. And I've already had this reservation done. So we'll have our first meeting in terms of events planning and board meeting on Wednesday, August 17th, the day after classes begin on August 16th, from noon to 1:30, room 222. I'll take care of food. So it's just a matter of finding the right people. The right people in the right jobs always make things work. Okay, and so I'm in the lookout for the right people, not really the most popular people, but right people. Okay, and so if you feel that you have that urge in you to make a difference to this organization, to the supply chain program, to take it to the next level, shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to have the discussion and consider your candidacy. Okay, and with that, I stop my share. Let me quickly stop recording.